We're trying to be serious because it's fika time and she only makes me laugh. Veronica!
Yay!
Welcome back to Coffee with Baseload. I hope you've had a good time and that you are ready with your cinnamon bun or whatever nice sweets you have and your coffee. We are. It's 3 o'clock and we are ready to do fika. Welcome back, Veronica.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yes.
We had you here the last episode, but actually we got a new question to you. So we had to take you back immediately.
Okay.
We have the question from the audience. Why did Baseload Capital go into Europe now?
And not before or not in the future.
Because they heard that you are the new investment manager of Europe.
Yeah.
So the curiosity spread.
Yeah.
So that's why we're here answering that question.
Yeah. So I would say I've been following the geothermal market for a few years. And in Europe, we have had a very strong base in Iceland. But in mainland Europe, it has been a bit of slow. But now things are starting to cook. So like if I just look back like 1.5 years ago, I thought that potentially a lot of things could actually happen in terms of producing heat, in terms of producing power. And what is also happening now is mineral extraction. So there are many things popping up in multiple locations in Europe. So I think it's about catching the wave.
So we caught the wave.
Yes, we are catching the wave.
I
would say I don't surf, but if I was a surfer, I would think that you're swimming towards the wave because the full wave hasn't come, but you need to get into position.
Okay.
So we're getting into position.
I like that. You know, I've been surfing once and then I got the board on my nose.
Ouch.
So, but we're learning.
Yeah.
We'll surf geothermal way. That's
exactly.
Why do you reckon? Because as you said, it's been cooking and things are starting to happen. What do you think are the things that have been happening the last period that actually pushes the interest for geothermal in Europe?
So I would say we have had a very interesting year this year. But if I then go back before, Russia invaded Ukraine, before all of energy security happened, there was already a wave starting to move. And that had to do with the oil and gas sector realizing that they had to make a transition. And what do they have? They have wells, lots and lots of wells, not only, even in Europe. And how can they utilize their existing, their existing wells, their existing know-how, their existing land, etc., to actually produce green power? And the most close for them is to go geothermal. So I would say that had already started happening. And then it kind of accelerated when people realized, I would say the past 6 months has been a sharp wake-up call for Europe about how do we become independent of Russian natural gas.
And exactly.
And therefore you push even further for geothermal.
So what we're talking about here is actually the war going on in Europe and in Ukraine in a setting. But do you think that, we're talking heat a lot? I mean, that's what we can read in the newspapers, that Europe is afraid that it won't be able to heat all the houses and this is going to affect the people and so on and so on. Do you think that they also started to realize that there could be electricity made out of this as well? Is that
absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely. I think there are multiple. Then now we go technical. So the challenge that you have in many countries, not only in our country, Sweden, you have it in Iceland, you have it all over, is the weak transmission lines. Or not weak, how should I put it? That transmission lines are designed for a base load of energy stable. If you look at other sources of energy that are very popular, like the sun, like the wind, it's intermittent. That poses a challenge for the grid owner. The beauty with putting in geothermal is that it's a stable production and therefore easier to handle for grid owners. So there's also a need to actually roll out those type of locally produced 24/7, 365 power sources. then where is it going to happen? That has to do with how deep do you need to drill? What is the price of drilling? What is the knowledge of the local areas, geology? So there are multiple things that needs to come in place, but we're discussing drilling quite deep right now, and both conventional geothermal, meaning that you drill, you bring up the hot water or steam, and you produce power. Or if you don't have a resource, you can actually go and do closed loop systems where you just look for the heat and then bring down the liquid and then produce power out of that. So there are multiple ways. And then the beauty is if you produce power locally, you don't have the transmission losses by sending it in far distances. You also have energy security, not only for your country, but for your local community. And in Iceland, they have an expression called made in Sveitin, which means locally produced. So the first, biggest power plant that Baseload has is Ludaorka in Kopsvatn in Iceland.
Yeah.
So there I know there's been a lot of, involving the community and the pride of that community to say, hey, we have a local power plant that is producing power for us. So I think to bring that story and tell more communities around Europe that, look, you can also do this. You can also have your local power plant for your households.
That brings pride.
That brings pride and security and a lot of positive effects.
I agree. What would you consider if all of these are opportunities? Are there any hurdles that we need to?
Absolutely, yeah. There, for example, one of the things that I would love to do, I haven't done it yet. I would love to take the oil and gas benefits and match them with geothermal, and just see. Okay, so in your industry, this is the game plan, or how do you say? These are the rules.
Yeah.
Comes to permitting, it comes to subsidies, it comes to tax cuts. If you list that and then you pull up the geothermal industry's rule and then you see, okay, how much is the gap? What is the delta between these two worlds?
It's kind of deep, yeah.
I haven't done it. I haven't done the analysis.
Would be interesting to do that.
Exactly. And see, okay, so if you want to push up green, renewable, locally produced power, why not give the same or better rule book than the traditional huge oil and gas industry?
So it's a bit up to the regulators. We need to work there. We need to work with the policies and so on. I know, for example, that Breakthrough Energy Venture is actually moving into Europe right now.
Oh, great.
There's a lot of policy and work being done on EU level. It's going to be very interesting to see what they can push forward, not only for geothermal, of course, but for renewables in general, in a sense. Would you say that there are any other hurdles? I know that you mentioned last time we talked about the access to data, that there are a lot of states and every state and every community has their own selected data, but it's not available. Well,
I would say that how well do you know what's happening underground in each local country? Iceland has fantastic data that is publicly shared. In other markets, you can... Now, this is not, I don't know it as well enough, but depending on how many wells that has been drilled in the past, how actually much reliable data do you have? And if you have the data, how do you share it? So I think it's both actually having the access to data and then to share the knowledge that you have.
Do you feel that it's an open enough climate that people actually do share that or want to share that?
I actually don't know. No. This is just, I took this from listening to the promises coming from politicians saying they will push for it. Therefore, I think there's something to be done.
I would agree with that.
Yeah.
I think that there is something to be done here.
Yeah.
Collaboration-wise in Europe, what are your hopes? I mean, we have the industry hopefully watching this.
Yeah.
How about what kind of collaborations do you think are important for not only baseload to succeed, but also for geothermal industry to succeed in Europe? What would you say?
I think it's important because if you look at the geothermal industry, it has a long history, and I feel when I go into this industry, I feel very humbled by the immense amount of experience that you have. So you have a lot of people with 20, 30 years in the industry. And so I would start on the individual level and say, if you are one of those persons that have 20 to 30 years experience, how much are you sharing and opening up to newcomers? Because we need to expand. So that I think is first on an individual level. Like, how much do you know, raise out your hand or involve and say, whoa, great, we are more. That is one thing. And then collaborations between partners, I think you need to, I want to hear about projects, and I understand sometimes there's a competition, but if you feel, if, for example, a competitor to Baseload would have a project that
we don't have competitors.
We don't have competitors.
We have only people who can together raise geothermal.
We don't have competitors.
But
okay, what I mean is that,
yeah.
okay, so maybe what I mean is that sometimes you don't know exactly, okay, it's a very good question.
But I think that you're on the right point. I interrupted you.
No, it's okay. What I'm thinking is, how do you share, if you think, okay, I will not do this, but I know this case, to share that with someone, and also to share know-how and together help each other. This is how we can run faster. Help each other locally to push policymakers. Because permitting is everyone will complain about.
Yeah.
The time it takes for permitting. And there I think I know there are local organizations within different countries, you know, to hold hands and go together.
I think that that's a very important thing to do. We are so much stronger if we are one united voice instead of people screaming from different places.
Exactly.
It's going to be much easier for us to actually make a difference to the legislation and the policy. Yeah. To summarize, any last words? What are you hoping for now when you're moving into Europe, going on the surf?
Going on the surf, I hope to build a nice portfolio of many projects, and I hope to be able to, you know, learn from those that know more than I do. I wish from a personal level to understand what is really tough, like, because I come from the tech side, and it's always interesting to know, okay, is this just a little harder or is it 10 times harder? So I want to understand what is that in geothermal? Like, when does it get 10 times harder? And when it's just harder? And then to have an open mind and collaborate and keep on helping each other and keep the spirit that we had at the European Geothermal Congress a few weeks ago. You know, keep that spirit and keep collaborating. I hope for other industries to see the huge potential in geothermal. I hope for children to learn what geothermal is, not only children in Iceland. I would love in Sweden if all children who understands what bergvärme is understands the word geothermal. For Italy, that is the heart of Europe, for that to change, you know, the local communities in Italy to be more positive, for the German public to be more positive. So basically, I think I would love like an educational, you know, if I could dream.
Go dream.
I go dream. So I just watched on the way here the Repower EU film from the European Commission. And they talk about solar, they talk about wind, they have the symbols, solar, wind, hydrogen, industry. Geothermal is not there. So if we look like 1 year from now, the EU should also have geothermal in their film.
Challenge accepted.
Yeah.
I think that's a great thing to do. If we succeed with that here, together with all of the people out there, because this is nothing that no one can do alone.
No.
This is really something we have to do together. I think that that's a great goal. Let's go for it.
Yeah.
And talking about collaborations.
Yes.
Yeah. I got a little bit scared last time when you brought out the big knife. So now...
Sorry.
So now when it's time for fika, I actually made you I made you small pieces. So you don't have to choose. So I added a couple of more here. So don't worry. So here you go.
Oh, thank you, thank you. I'll go
There
for
you
the
go.
cookie this time. Wow.
But I'll go for the hallongrotta.
You want the big one, I go
my
for
favorite.
it.
Yeah, this
Okay,
one.
yeah.
And it's really,
Aw.
it's very difficult to eat. So it's going to be one of those moments again.
Okay,
yeah.
okay.
Before I have one of those moments, if you like this, please make sure to share it so that more people can have the pleasure of liking it. Make sure to subscribe to newsletters and social media, and also write to us. We want to have your questions. Please give them to us so that we can answer them together, and maybe you can come here and answer it, because we want other people to come to Fika.
Yeah, oh, absolutely.
Absolutely. We invite you to Fika. Now, enjoy and take care of yourself, and if you can, someone else. Here we go. I'm heading for it. You have to take a bite big enough to get to the middle. Very good.
Yeah.